Come let me vibe, lime vibe. Come let me lime, come let me vibe, lime vibe. Lime vibe.
Check 1 2, check 1 2. Good night, everybody, and welcome once again to another LimeVibe Live podcast. I'm your benevolent podcaster, Mr. Yuri Armenkamp from Nassau, Bahamas. I thank you for joining me again for another LimeVibe Live podcast. Tonight's going to be kind of a special podcast tonight because right afterwards, I'm going to have another podcast, a recorded podcast with some people from South Korea, the Heavenly World Light people from South Korea. They have this peace conference every year. I'm going to upload that tonight as well after I'm finished talking to them. I was going to have them on live tonight, but apparently right after the show tonight, I'm going to be live with them in South Korea. So yeah, it's going to be a special night tonight. So I may not be for the whole hour tonight. I haven't been for the whole hour with you for a long while since Kim has been gone, but I'll try to make the best show of this as I possibly can. But thank you for joining me again for another LimeVibe Live podcast. And please, if you have not done so, please like, share, and subscribe to our Facebook and YouTube page. That's LimeVibe77. That's LimeVibe77 at Facebook and YouTube. And also, there's a donate link inside the description. So please, whenever you have a chance, just click that same donate link right there. And you could donate anything that moves your heart to give to the LimeVibe Live podcast. You could donate $5 or you could donate $5,000. It all depends on you. So please help the LimeVibe podcast really grow and prosper. And we appreciate your support. And we appreciate you tuning into us right now. Okay, so let's get right into some of the things that's been happening in the region. There's a lot of stuff happening out of the Dutch Caribbean as of late. Apparently, they're becoming a human smuggling hub for Venezuelan migrants leaving Venezuela. The Inside Crime news organization that's in Latin America right now, I think they operate out of Panama. They've been reporting a lot of the crime situation in Central America and Latin America. And they said that and the Caribbean as well. And they said that there's a lot of Venezuelan migrants making their way to the Dutch Caribbean and trying to make their way out of, Venezuela in particular. And so, the Dutch Caribbean is a hotbed for drugs and for human smuggling. And I'd like to say this. If the Netherlands government, if the Netherlands crown, they cannot control their protectorates and their colonies, then please let them go. Let the United States take care of this side of the world, because if you're not going to help, and if you're not going to bring any alleviation to the situation in these islands that you have in the Caribbean, then you might as well let them go. You just can't allow, these migrants and these drugs to be trafficked through the Dutch Caribbean on their way to Europe or on their way to the United States or Canada, and then say that, oh no, we have a protectorate inside the Caribbean. That's not healthy, man. And then there are human lives that are being smuggled through the Dutch Caribbean right now, from Curacao and Aruba, from Venezuela, through to these islands. And it's not fair to those people, man. It's a very dangerous thing. I can imagine how those people feel. Anyway, like I said, Inside Crime, they've been doing a lot of work with regard to monitoring the crime trends in Latin America and the Caribbean. And they do a lot of extensive work from all the cartels in Colombia, from all the drug cartels in Ecuador, from all the human smuggling that happens in Mexico and Central America and Venezuela, the Venezuelan migrant crisis and the Venezuelan mafia crisis that they have, the organized crime they have in Venezuela. So they've been doing a lot of work. And kudos to those guys at the Inside Crime. Okay, another story from the Dutch Caribbean as well. Apparently, the Dutch government had promised their protectorates, that's Curacao, Aruba, Bonaire, and St. Martin. They promised them $200 million to share between themselves in terms of reparations, $200 million worth of reparations for slavery. And here's where it gets funny, yo. Here's where it gets funny. As for Curacao, Aruba, Bonaire, St. Martin, St. Eustatius, and Saba, they were all supposed to get $200 million to share between themselves. However, that $200 million got whittled down to $100 million last week. And the $100 million now is supposed to be shared between, those said islands, Curacao, Aruba, St. Martin, St. Eustatius, and Saba. And now they were supposed to add Suriname and the Netherlands themselves, they're going to get a third apiece. So Suriname is going to get a third at $100 million. That was whittled down from $200 million. And Suriname is going to get a third, and the Netherlands is going to get a third. So that means now the $200 million that the Dutch protectorates, Curacao, Aruba, Bonaire, St. Martin, St. Eustatius, and Saba, the $200 million they thought they were going to get has now been whittled all the way down to $33 million to share between themselves. So that means that's $5 million a piece. What we were saying in the Bahamas, you get swing. You get swing, man. The Dutch government, oh, they're dirty. Oh, that's dirty what you did. You promised them $200 million and then you end up with $5 million. That's chump change, man. That's chump change for reparations. And for I could see Suriname getting a good chunk of that. But you don't whittle it down to $200 million, $100 million. Then you're giving Suriname the lion's share of it. You know, do right, man. You have more money than that. All the years of slavery that these countries have endured as a result of, you having slaves. And to give them just $5 million a piece, it's just an insult, man. A slap in the face. But why is a third going back to the Netherlands in the first place? Why is a third of the reparations money going back to the Netherlands themselves? That doesn't make any sense. They're already there. I mean, who gets that money in the Netherlands? But I know there's a lot of African descent people that live in the Netherlands, just like how every other European come from France to the United Kingdom, who had colonies in the New World and who were involved in the slave trade. At least they acknowledge they were in the slave trade, at least. But but now I can understand why a third's going back now. Okay, I take that back. I understand why a third's going back. Because there are a lot of Black people that live in the Netherlands, live in Holland, And that's to say, hey, you know something? But you don't start off with promising somebody $200 million, and then you whittle it down to $33 million, and now down to $5 million a piece. You don't start like that. That's not how we do business. Now I could see how, our ancestors were actually taken from Africa, because if those 5 countries, Curacao, Aruba, Bonaire, St. Martin, St. Eustatius, and Saba, believe that the Dutch government were going to give them $200 million right off the top, they had to be out of their minds. They had to be crazy. I guess they believe the same boat ride. Their ancestors believe the same boat ride when the Dutch colonizers and slave traders, they came to Africa and picked them up off the boat. Oh, we're going for a nice boat sail, and we're going to take you on a nice trip. We're going to bring you right back. They probably believe that too. It's amazing. It's amazing, man. It's amazing. It's amazing. Until you see that, but something, the Dutch government's really ridiculous. You promised them to, but I bet you it's not in writing. I bet you it's only a statement or utterance. But even so, an utterance itself is a contract. You just got to utter something and promise something. There's some things called a verbal contract as well. If you promise somebody $200 million in the open, you should deliver on that $200 million. So I'm talking about it's not being in writing. If you promise them $200 million, give those 6 countries, Curacao, Aruba, Bonaire, St. Martin, St. Eustatius, and Saba, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, give them their $200 million. It shouldn't be whittled down to $5 million a piece now. That's ridiculous, man. They can't get by with that. And of course, when they get the money from you, they're going to break away. They're going to develop their own country. They're going to go independent. And they should. And they should. Because you're not really helping many, because as we just spoke about earlier, they're still having to deal with drug smuggling, the scandal of drug smuggling and human smuggling as well on their own. They're only getting the smear from this. The Dutch isn't getting the smear from this. I'm the only person that probably brought the Dutch government into this, because that's their protectorates. These are countries that belong to them. So it shouldn't be those countries standing alone as Caribbean countries themselves. So if the Dutch government and the Dutch crown, they cannot manage their own countries and protectorates, then give them away. The British did that back in the 70s and the 60s. They said, something, we cannot manage all of these colonies in the Caribbean. We're going to give you your independence and let you run your own way. Because they know they couldn't manage it. Same thing they did with India, the same thing they did with Pakistan, the same thing they did with Hong Kong. We can't manage all of this. We're going to give you back your countries. Okay? And the Dutch should consider that, because there's no reason why they should be having these colonies anyway. They're not a major world power. They're not helping anybody, And most likely the United States, they help these countries anyway. So what is the Dutch government doing? Promising them $200 million. I can't believe they believe that $200 million just for them. I'm going to tell you right now, those countries in the Dutch Caribbean, join in with CARICOM, please. And so we can have a serious concerted push towards getting reparations from these European colonizers, please? So we could know how we're fighting right off the bat. We get the United Nations involved, we get the OAS involved, we get all these international agencies involved, so we could get our money. There's no backdoor money. They were trying to go in thinking that the Dutch government was going to be nice to them if they give them $200 million. No, they're not going to care for you unless you're part of a bigger bloc. Join the CARICOM countries, the English-speaking Caribbean countries, and lobby effectively for reparations for everybody. So everybody get a good check. That makes sense to me. As we say in the Bahamas, you get swing. You've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, lied to, and run amok. In the famous words of Malcolm X, you know, you got swing. They lied to you, straight up lied to you. Man, my God, it's embarrassing that they're still doing that to us, and you're still falling for it. But I'm glad that the Bonaire Human Rights Organization, who gave us a press release and said that, the Bonaire Human Rights Organization said this, and you know, they sent a press release saying the Dutch government had really pulled back from them. Were Indian givers, they pulled back from them. Okay. Yeah. And this was done apparently on October 1 and October 2nd at the Simpson Bay Resort in St. Martin, when they heard the Dutch government promise them $200 million and pull back from $200 million and whittle it down to $5 million apiece. Amazing. Amazing. Such ridiculous stuff. Okay, but you know, that's the Dutch government. And at least they're a little better than the French government. The French government didn't even care to look back at Guadeloupe and Martinique. You know, those two countries just fall off the face of the map as far as they're concerned. And don't even get me started on French Guiana as well. It's like that's a backwater country that nobody cares about. It was a penal colony, to be honest with you. And that's where the French sent their criminals, to French Guiana. A lot of people don't know that. There's the Dutch Guiana, which is Suriname. There's the English Guyana, which is now Guyana. And there's the French Guyana. It's all called the Guianas. And you can see which one has been prospering the most. Now we've seen they all were like basket case countries, but now we've seen that Guyana have been allowed to develop on its own. The English-speaking Guyana has been allowed to develop on its own. Now it has its oil now, so you know they're trying to get on good footing now. And apparently Suriname has oil reserves that they're trying to tap into. So we wish them all the best. We wish them all the best with that. But French Guiana, no one even talks. You don't even know that French Guiana is a country, do you? French Guiana is a country. There's a French protectorate in the Guyanas in South America next to Guyana and Suriname. So don't get me started on the French government and the French government's protectorates in the Caribbean. They don't care a rat's tail end about the French, the former French colonies. Now look at what they did to Haiti. You know, case in point. And finally, the United Nations has approved troops to be sent to Haiti. You probably heard that news. So the Kenyan government is being given the authority to go into Haiti as peacekeeping troops, to send peacekeeping troops into Haiti. And they're going to be joined by the Bahamas troops and Jamaican troops shortly. And hopefully some other countries will join on as well. But now that's breaking news. Now Haiti can receive the help that they so desperately need. That's good news, man. This has been threatened over the past several months from back in February this year, when the Jamaican government said that they were willing to send troops. Then the Kenyan government came back in May and said, we're going to send our troops. And it's been this slow creep towards actually getting troops on the ground. So hopefully, we can have an international peacekeeping force in Haiti on the ground by the end of November. However, the elections are supposed to be held in November. So that's what my reports are telling me in Haiti, that elections are supposed to be held in November. So those peacekeeping troops need to get on the ground immediately. They have to secure Haiti before they can actually have an election. Because you can't have an election like this. You know, the Haitian government they just can't do it. Ariel Henry is just not up to snuff. He's just not up to standard. And the tripartite group, the eminent leaders, the eminent group, working group, that's the former Prime Minister of the Bahamas, the former Prime Minister of St. Lucia, and the former Prime Minister of Jamaica. That's Perry Christie, Kenny Anthony, and Bruce Golding, respectively. They're saying that they're speaking to the stakeholders, but then sometimes conversations are breaking down with the stakeholders in Haiti. And so they're having a hard time building consensus how they should move the country forward. But we wish them all the best. It's one of the better efforts I think that's happened in the Caribbean. I wish them all the support. No one said it was going to be easy. However, they're making a concerted effort to get it done. I really appreciate their efforts in doing this. And I give them my full support with that. So, yeah. Another story. Tourism still is our main bread and basket industry. Okay, we can't do anything without tourism. And World Tourism Day was held last week, Wednesday. And the Caribbean Tourism Organization, they held a panel on Wednesday, talking about the benefits of Caribbean tourism. And we've had several people on that same panel. They're talking about how the Caribbean is a Silicon Valley of the of tourism. I think the CTO chairman, what's his name? Let me get his name for you. He's the Minister for Tourism for the Cayman Islands. CTO chairman. 1 second. He's the Honorable Kenneth Bryan. He's the Minister for Tourism in Cayman Islands. He's the new chairman of the Caribbean Tourism Organization. He said that the Caribbean is the Silicon Valley of tourism. Okay, but also on that virtual panel they had last week Wednesday, they talked about a lot of different things that we could help to develop tourism for the rest of the people in these Caribbean islands. And we're talking about everybody from the youth to the cultural organizations, but most importantly, the indigenous peoples, the people who actually were here when Columbus first came, the indigenous Indian Americans. There's still a few of them. There are a few of them still in Dominica right now. There are lots in Guyana and in Suriname. There are lots of indigenous people that are still here left in the Caribbean. Dominica has a good population, and they're the only notable population, I think, that is even worth talking about in the actual island chains themselves. Not on the mainland Latin America, South America, but in the mainland chains. So Christopher Columbus and the conquistadors didn't kill everybody, even though they tried to. I still can't believe, God bless those souls. I still can't believe the Spanish conquistadors came here in the 1400s and nearly killed everybody by the time the 1600s came around. By the time the Lutheran adventurers came to the Bahamas in Eleuthera in the late 1600s, there was not an indigenous Indian, Lucayan, or Arawak on any of these islands, save for one lady that they found in Grand Bahama. One old woman, she was the only person they found. Everybody was already dead. The Spanish did that. Anyway, but that tourism panel, they talk about benefits for incorporating indigenous people into the tourism product. And that's important because this is their country as well. These are their country. We often only think of the Caribbean as African Caribbean, African descent. And yes, we were brought here, but we've got to remember we share these islands with our Indian brothers and sisters and our indigenous brothers and sisters as well. And they're important, and they need to be brought into the tourism mix as well, because they have a lot to offer. They have a lot to offer with regard to historical tourism and cultural tourism. And that's pretty much what this gentleman, Richard Campbell, had said. He's the chief of office, in the Office of Tourism at the Organization of American States in Washington, D.C. He was on the panel, and he said that incorporating indigenous people has always been a challenge because of their informality, because we've pushed them to the back. We've pushed these people to the back. We've pushed them off the grid. We need to bring these people back onto the grid because people want to see them. They're special. I would like to see the indigenous people in Dominica when I visit there, or in Guyana, or in Suriname. I would like to see them. And they share a lot, and Belize as well too, actually. And because they have a lot of history to share, their culture, their practices, that's tourism within itself. People will want to see these things. We incorporate them into the tourism product. And he said further that you have to develop them in clusters and in groups, and so it could spur entrepreneurship between themselves. Yes, why can't an indigenous group own a tourism development in Belize, in Dominica, in Guyana, in Suriname? Why can't they be a part of that tourism value chain? At least sell us some cheap trinkets, some cheap souvenirs. Everybody's got souvenirs. Get some coconuts, make some things and knock some things up. So incorporating indigenous people into the tourism mix is vitally important moving forward. It can only enhance the value of tourism for all those countries that have indigenous people within them. That's the Dominicas, the Belize's, the Guyanas, the Surinams in particular. They have a huge population, or a significant population, or I would say a noticeable population of indigenous people that are still left over, that the Spanish conquistadors did not kill in the Caribbean. Okay, while we moved on to Central America in a bit with Belize, we have to talk about Costa Rica, man. Costa Rica is undergoing a crime wave, apparently. Yeah, the country's recorded 630 people killed as of September 25th. That's two more than 2022, which was the record of 628 in 2022. So crime is just continually going up in Costa Rica, man. With a country of 5.1 million people, that's about 12 per 100,000 people. The crime rate is soaring, and Costa Rica was one of the more stable and peaceful countries in the Caribbean, in Central America, sorry. I often heard that from one of my professors who visited Costa Rica all the time. She always said that Costa Rica is a beautiful country, it's peaceful, there's no crime, nothing of that happens, nothing that stuff happens in Costa Rica like how they would happen in El Salvador and Guatemala. And she always talked about it as a shining beacon of Central American democracy. Stable governments, there's no coups, no bloods in the streets, no assassination of political opponents. There's just a very peaceful and stable Central American country. However, they're going through a crime wave. And of course, another report from the inside crime people, the inside crime people, they said that cocaine is really at the bottom of it. They're getting involved in the middle of the cocaine smuggling that's coming from Colombia, that's coming from Venezuela. And it's increased the violence in Costa Rica. We just can't get past this drugs, man. We just can't get past this coke. And it's a plaguing issue in the Caribbean and Central America, man. So many lives were lost. That's 630 people by September 25th alone this year. In 2022, the year before, they had a record of 628. That's going until December. But they already have 630 as of September 25th. That's shocking. That's very sad, man, for Costa Rica. All because of cocaine. The cocaine that's smuggled through them to get to the Dutch Caribbean, to get to Europe, apparently. But the Dutch Caribbean, the Dutch government wants to continue holding on these protectors like they're doing something about them, like they're actually helping the situation. No, see, that's what I mean, because their slackness and their disregard of some of these countries, they leave them in this matrix, this mix, where they're not quite independent, they're not quite, part of the Netherlands government. So there's a lot of in between, a lot of gray areas between these countries, man. So there's no supervision. There's no real supervision because everyone's going to, say the blame is going to go on the Dutch government, while everyone would say the blame is going to go on the independent governments in these countries themselves. Okay, and that's what's bringing this kind of this black area where nobody understands who the real authority is, and this is where all these things are now happening. So you see how the chain goes, because we have slackness in the Dutch Caribbean, with drugs being smuggled through and people being smuggled through Venezuela on the mainland South America. How we have that slackness in the chain is causing violence in Costa Rica, with drugs coming down from Mexico, I can imagine, cocaine coming down from Mexico, being smuggled through Venezuela, being smuggled through the Dutch Caribbean. Now you see why the Dutch government should take better care of their protectorates in the region, because it's causing problems with other countries in the region. Yeah, off to American news, Brandy. Did you hear what happened to a U.S. speaker in the United States, Congress, Speaker of the Congress, Kevin McCarthy? He was voted out earlier this week. He was called on the floor by one of his, Republican colleagues. He's the Republican from the 55th. No, Kevin McCarthy is the Republican congressman from the 55th District of California, and he was the Speaker of the House. And he went through an historic rise to become the Speaker of the U.S. Congress. He had 15 votes, 15 ballots cast for him when he first came to become Speaker of the House. That's unheard of. No one went through that many ballots to become the Speaker of the House. He has kept on being rejected. He failed to win a majority. He kept on being rejected 15 times. At the 15th time, he won. I can imagine why people didn't want him as a Speaker of the House, because he's a California Democrat. And the Republican, California Republican. So you can imagine now. I'm even calling him a Democrat. He's a California Republican. And the Republicans control the House. And so I can imagine those Republicans from Alabama, from Florida, as we talk about Matt Gaetz, the guy who actually led the charge against him. We're going to talk about him later too. We can imagine those, deep-seated Bible Belt Republicans do not want a California Republican being their Speaker of the House. We can imagine that. And that's why it took him 15 votes to get there. Now you're seeing the politics within the politics themselves playing out inside the United States Congress. And so, Kevin McCarthy, he's voted out. He's not going to be speaking anymore, but he said he's not going to resign his seat either. He's not going to resign his seat in Congress. He's going to continue being the congressman for California for the Republican Party. Yeah, because the people put you there. Your colleagues put you as speaker, but the people put you there to run the 55th district of California. So when the people call you back, when you lose your election, that's when you leave the House. But if you're going to win your election, your seat in Congress, by all means, stay in Congress. Yeah, that's the one just to speak of the House. And that's all politics. And once you start to peel back the layers, and you realize he's a California Republican, and you can imagine the Republicans from Alabama, from Arkansas, from Florida, from Georgia, they would not want a Californian Republican leading them in Congress, because I can imagine what they felt about it. His views are totally different from their views. Like I said, he denied he's going to, he denied resigning from his seat in Congress. However, but the person who led the charge against him was this guy called Matt Gaetz. Remember Matt Gaetz? That Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, who was involved in a sex trafficking ring back in 2020. He was exonerated from that sex trafficking scandal. And he was also reported to have been to expensive trips to the Bahamas back in 2018 when they were doing an investigation on him. And he came to the Bahamas with a marijuana entrepreneur and a surgeon. Apparently, I don't want to say the man's name, but it's on Wikipedia. You can read his bio on Wikipedia and all the scandals going through it. People say Wikipedia is not a good source. Wikipedia is a good source. It gives you the basic facts, the basic rundown. And once you see that when you read Wikipedia now, you see your footnotes, and you can go straight to where the source of that material came from. And it's either from a news article from the New York Times, Newsweek, or the Washington Post, or some other scholarly journal or article. So Wikipedia is not how it used to be anymore. You can actually trust Wikipedia now, or trust it better now. So Matt Gaetz, yeah, he led the call. I'm going to share with you what he said on the House floor about Kevin McCarthy that led to the vote getting Kevin McCarthy out of the speaker's chair in the United States Congress. But can you imagine that? The audacity, the balls of Matt Gaetz, who was involved in his own scandal, getting up on the Congress floor and demanding the Speaker of the House resign his seat or be voted out. Can you imagine that? Do you see how American politics now has been going downhill ever since? They can't keep it together. And right now, the U.S. government's in a government shutdown now. I'm going to talk about that too. But let's go to the video now. Let's share the video of Matt Gaetz giving Kevin McCarthy the business on the House floor. Let's go to that here. 1 second. There you go. And there you have it. You know, there you have it. Matt Gaetz giving Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, the business. You know, and the vote went on. He lost the vote later on that day. But you know, he spoke about a lot of things in that 2 minute plus clip just then. He spoke about how all these things are lumped into these bills and these things are passed down and set on the side. You know, and Matt Gaetz, I don't think he's inexperienced that he doesn't know how government works in the United States. That's how these bills get passed. These bills get passed because they are trade-offs. You know, you want your road in your district. However, I want my school in my district. So in order to get your road, I want you to put within that spending bill. You know, I want you to put the materials for my school in your spending bill. Now vote for your road if you put the materials for my school in your spending bill. And that's how these seemingly bills that are only supposed to be $100 billion balloon to $300, $400 billion. That's how these things balloon. Because everyone wants their part in that bill. Everyone wants their piece in that bill. And it's for expedience as well, too, you know. There's not just anything nefarious, because why go back to Congress for bill after bill after bill? It's already boring and tedious as it is right now. It's already cumbersome to continually go back to the U.S. Congress for every little bill. And you could put it all in one omnibus bill and get it through the House. And everybody could get their part, and everybody could vote and be happy and be in agreement with one another. Now, of course, the Ukraine situation is a controversial topic. Okay, we won't get into that. Why would you put Ukraine issues in the same bill with border security? That's an issue as well. Maybe Kevin McCarthy may have been going overboard. However, this is the politics that's happening now in the United States. This is what's happening on the ground right now. So I wouldn't sit there and judge Kevin McCarthy for what he's trying to do to keep, you know, things going. However, what I can say is that, you know, the government shutdown again is a plaguing issue in the United States. And one time they're going to pull the trigger on that, it's going to be disastrous for them. And every time they keep having to pull these appropriations bills, these stopgap measures, but one time they're going to pull the trigger and they're going to have a full shutdown where all these federal workers go home. It's going to be a disaster for the United States. And if you don't know what a government shutdown is, let me tell you what it is. A government shutdown really is when it occurs when Congress fails to pass or the president refuses to sign a spending bill to fund the federal government's operations. This results in a funding gap that can cause several government functions to be temporarily disrupted. Government shutdowns are often resolved by Congress passing continuing resolutions, which provide short-term funding while negotiations for a long-term solution continue. Every shutdown since 1990 has ended with a continuing resolution. So they've been having stopgap measures from the 1990s. They've been playing this shutdown politics from the 1990s. But one time they're going to pull the trigger and they're going to cause a lot of people to go home. One time someone's going to get crazy. And this is not the time to do it because you have China right now and you have Russia right now bearing down on the United States. This is not the time for the United States to show weakness. And right now it's looking very weak. It's divided. You know, you have your speaker, work with your speaker. Matt Gaetz should be the last person getting up there asking for a vote. And right now, he's a pawn. He's being used by someone in the background who doesn't want to put their face forward. They could use him because they know Matt Gaetz is tainted, and he could say anything right now. He's a loose cannon. Matt Gaetz could say anything right now because he has nothing to lose. His career is already finished. He's gone to the highest position. He probably is going to go in the United States government, United States politics. They scandalized him back in 2020. So he has nothing to lose. So anyone who gives him the kind of power he wants, or the kind of money he wants, he's going to say it on the floor. And that's the kind of people you're dealing with. You're dealing with these cutthroat, dangerous men like Matt Gaetz. That's who Kevin McCarthy went against, you know. So he tried his best to cut deals with the Democrats to get these spending bills passed, but it didn't work out for him. All right. So now Kevin McCarthy's gone. There's no clear front runner. So I can imagine within the next week or so, you're going to see a clear front runner jump out of the woodwork, who everyone apparently likes, who the Southern Democrats like, the Bible Belt Republicans, I should say, like. That's what you're going to find come out of the woodworks now. So I wish America all the best with that. But just a recap of what we've talked about already. You know, the Dutch Caribbean is going through a high amount of human smuggling right now. And it's, you know, wreaking havoc on the rest of the region. Along with the drug trafficking that happens with the Caribbean, or anyway, they're having human smuggling coming from Venezuela. You know, the Dutch government, again, promised, you know, the countries of Curacao, Aruba, Bonaire, St. Martin, St. Eustatius, and Saba $200 million shared between themselves that automatically got whittled down to $33 million. So it went from $200 million to $100 million. And that $100 million was supposed to be shared. A third was supposed to go back to the Netherlands. Another third was supposed to go to Suriname and left the 5 aforementioned countries, Curacao, Aruba, Bonaire, St. Martin, St. Eustatius, and Saba, with $33 million to split between themselves. That's what the Dutch government did to them. What a joke, right? And we also talked about, well, they were bamboozled and hoodwinked. Of course they were. We also talked about, how, tourism for the indigenous peoples are very important. How they need to be involved in tourism product moving forward. That's important to grow tourism for everybody, because they have something very special to offer, because they've been here all their lives. They have history. And so telling their story would be an amazing effort if tourism could really harness that on their behalf. Because telling it from the African side and telling it from the European side does not do the Caribbean justice. And we need to integrate them into all of the facets of tourism, from every chain, from souvenirs to resort ownership, to all these little things down the chain of the value chain of tourism. We need to involve the indigenous peoples into these things. We also spoke about the Costa Rican homicide rate. They have 630 murders for 2023 alone. They had 628 for 2022. They have 630 murders as of September 25th right now in Costa Rica alone. And Costa Rica is one of the more stable Central American countries, one of the more stable ones. And they're going through a crime wave. And of course, drugs, cocaine from Colombia and Ecuador and Venezuela have been making their way to Costa Rica. And that's fueling the crime wave. And we also just spoke about the U.S. Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, being voted out of his seat as U.S. Speaker of the House, led by the scandalized Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, loose cannon Matt Gaetz. What a time we have! What a time we have in world politics. And the world's at war. The world's at war, and you have the world's only superpower, the United States. Can't get their act together. The world's at war. So this is what we have right now. My God, what a time! And like I said, I'm not going to be on long tonight. I have another interview right after the show right now. I'm going to be live in South Korea with some people from the Heavenly World Light and Peace Organization. I went to their peace conference back in 2018. I visited South Korea, had a great time. So I'm going to talk to them tonight about their upcoming events for this year's peace conference. And so I'm looking forward to talking to them tonight. I'm going to share that video on the LimeVibe website as well. So please look out for all of our videos on LimeVibe. Please, if you have not done so, like, share, and subscribe to our Facebook and YouTube page as LimeVibe77. That's LimeVibe77 on Facebook and YouTube. And also, there's a donate link inside the description. So if anything that moves your heart to give to the LimeVibe podcast, please do. It's an open donation. You can give $5 or $5,000. We would accept anything that once you think that we're doing a good job, I would appreciate that greatly. So let's get out of here quickly. So this is Yuri Kemp for another LimeVibe Live podcast. Like I say, please like, share, and subscribe. That's LimeVibe77. That's LimeVibe77 on Facebook and YouTube. And please be on the lookout for all of our other content on our social media stations. And so please do so. Like, share, and subscribe. We really would appreciate that. Okay? See you guys next week, Friday, with another show. Later.